Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Talking Halos. I'm your host today, Jared Timms, and I am joined alongside my co-host, my partner in crime, Nate Green. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jared. How about you, buddy?
Another day in paradise, Nate.
Yes, sir.
Another day in paradise. No minor league baseball, unfortunately, because they all played on the 4th. I mean, you don't want to count the Angels as a minor league team. You can probably. But okay, jokes aside. No, I'm kidding. They're a Major League Ball Club.
Sort of.
But yeah, good. We're rolling. We're doing good here. So baseball.
Yes.
Baseball. I'm
excited to pick up from where we left off.
Yes, that's very good. If you haven't listened to part 1 that came out Tuesday, July the 5th, go ahead and go listen to that first. This one will make a little bit more sense. We're going to break down the other half. We're going to break down management, coaching staff, and also we're going to break down a little bit of player action. And I think if we have some time, we're going to jump into what we would do. I know a lot of fans probably already know what we're going to talk about. We've mentioned it before. We're going to bring it up again, but I think we have a pretty good plan of how to make the Angels a winning ball club. But first off, I got 2 things to talk about here. Number one, MLB Pipeline came out with their top 100 prospect list. 29 teams are in it, minus the Angels. Are you surprised? Now that you are getting into minor league baseball a little bit more?
Absolutely not. The only guy that you could argue, there's only one.
1.5. I give you 1.5, but it's that half's not. There's a reason why that's a half. So go on.
I would give 1, and that's just because Kai Busch has pitched so well. Yeah. That is the only guy that could even be mentioned in this list. I don't think that he's in this list quite yet. I think he's still got some room to grow, still some things to do, and just really not enough hype around him to put him in this top 100 list. Part of the top 100 list is the hype around you as a prospect. And I don't think that Kai Busch really has that hype as much as, some of the other guys who are on this list.
Working on it, though. We're working on it. We're trying to get them some hype. But yeah, thinking about this now, the Angels could very well, if they developed right, and if they didn't promote guys early, they could very well have 3 guys in the top 100. Because let's be fair, like Detmers was ready, but Adele probably not ready in 2020. It would have been nice to see him. He's playing some good minor league baseball, but it would have been nice to see him take some better steps in the minor leagues. And I think we're kind of seeing the downfall of that right now, though I think that he's going to be fine. I'm not too worried about Adele. And then Marsh has been fine in the outfield. I would like to see the strikeouts jump down a little bit. That's an approach thing. I think we'll talk about that on the coaching side of things. So the Angels could very well, if you think about it, have a few guys there if they didn't promote early, if they didn't do a couple things, if they weren't needed to go push their players in a sense. I know we've kind of talked about that off the record. I don't think we've talked about it on the record as much. But yeah, going back to the 1.5, Kai Busch is my number 1 prospect at the moment in the Angels system. It's not really even close. No. He jumped up. I had him at number 2, I think, to start the season off because I was that impressed by the reports that were coming out. And then, seeing him in AA, it was like, it's too easy. It makes a lot of sense. I think he's MLB ready right now. I don't want to push him, though. There's no need to at the moment, though. My plan, I think, is get him up as quickly as possible to get him some major league service time. But we'll get to that in a second. And then my half is Jordan Adams. Absolutely love the kid. He's
my guy. That is my guy. And he's raking out of his mind now that he's finally hitting in a place where you can actually hit the baseball, which is nice for him to be in AA. And he's showing the signs of being a very good player. But I think he just kind of got unlucky with when the timing of the pipeline come out, because if Adams had been called up a month ago and he had been doing this for a month, he might be number 95.
And this exact reason is why Jeremiah Jackson didn't go to Tri-City. Yep. This is why we've been calling for Jordan Adams to get called up, and this is also why I am not one bit worried about Kyron Paris, who's hitting like 190 in Tri-City.
It's so hard to hit there.
I talked to talked with I feel like I can say I talked with Connor Higgins the other day. He's down there, and I was like I haven't been, but I've heard the ball doesn't fly, and he's like. I was like, it's probably good for you, as a pitcher. And he's like, yeah, the ball dies at Tri-City. It really does. Anywhere else, it's good hitting, but Tri-City it's where hitters go to die. So I mean, that's as good as it. Like I mean, it's coming from a player there.
Yep.
That's that's pitching there right now. So
but yeah, I agree with you. If Jordan Adams had been in Double-A starting the beginning of June and got to play all of June, and you look up, he's hitting 330.
We're probably talking first off number one prospect in the Angels system,
100%.
And second off, we're definitely talking a top 100 prospect.
Yeah,
so
I think he's in that 90 range, honestly, between 90 and 100. So he will be there. There are some guys who are going to graduate here in the next couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, and if he continues to hit, then I wouldn't be shocked to see his name on this list.
Yeah, and I'll say it now. Like my midseason top 100 is going to be Bush and Adams. It's kind of how it's been. Bachman will be 3. Though if Bachman comes back and you see the upper 90s, see the good slider. Like I know he's a reliever, but like those 2 pitches, it's with what the Angels have, it's top 1 worthy. Like he's ends up being the best prospect in the Angels system. He has to come back healthy. So there's that. Second thing I wanted to talk about was Noah Syndergaard. Did you see his fastball percentage after his start?
A lot of sliders in the game on Tuesday.
Threw 9 4-seams. I think he threw 19 sinkers. So combine those together. 73 pitches, I think is what it was, but not a lot of fastballs.
I thought it was 92 pitches.
Was it 92? I don't remember.
But yeah, predominantly slider. Still hasn't really found Mr. 98 to 101. I think what you're seeing from him this year, and it's a shame that he probably will not be in an Angels uniform next year, because you see kind of the jump that guys make after learning how to pitch again. CC Sabathia, it took him a full year to kind of reinvent himself from being upper 9s to, hey, I throw low to mid 9s, but I've got to use some other pitches. Yep. Justin Verlander, same thing, went from being upper 9s every single start to mid 9s. And he went from being everyone going, 4 or 5 ERA, like, is this guy done, to I'm going to win 1, possibly 2 Cy Youngs age 33 plus, which is ridiculous. So I think Syndergaard's really trying to figure out his new mix of pitches and how to compete without throwing 101. So I think he's figuring out well. Hopefully he continues to pitch well. I think he could be a big boost for a team trying to get one more arm to make the playoffs. He could be a number 3 or number 4 in a postseason roster, postseason starting rotation. So if he continues to pitch well, the Angels might be able to make him more available, and he might jump Jose Quintana on probably the number 1 rental pitcher. When I say rental pitcher, I'm not counting Tyler Mahle, Luis Castillo, Frankie Montas. I'm talking about a guy who's got a half year left on his contract. So Jose Quintana is probably the number 1 guy on that list right now. But if Syndergaard keeps pitching well, he easily could jump up there, and you're going to have teams like the Red Sox, possibly the White Sox, and maybe even a team like the Braves or the Mets or somebody like that interested in him. So there's a lot of possibilities if he continues to pitch well and continues to learn how to pitch with 95 instead of 101.
Yep. And everybody's looking for pitching this time of the year. So Angels, more than likely, I would assume, are sellers. You never know, though, if they rattle off 10 games in a row or something like that. It doesn't look like they will, but you never know.
You already know what's going to happen. They're gonna do just enough to create hope. They're not really going to be in it, but they're going to convince themselves they're in it. They're going to trade for, a backup third baseman and call it good, and they'll finish 82 and 80, 75 and 84, and we'll be looking like, man, why didn't we sell? This is the ninth year in a row that we've been in this situation and continue to not really buy, but not really sell. And that is why we have no prospects, and that's why we don't get better. So
I hate that you're making me look at this. You go Miami today when this podcast comes out. You go 4 against Baltimore, which Baltimore has been fine this year. We knew they were going to be
Baltimore's
interesting.
2-1 against the Angels this year.
Yeah, you go Houston, who we talked about Houston. Houston absolutely,
Houston
and
is
then the
very good.
Dodgers, who we mentioned. Well,
Only 2 with them, correct?
Yeah, only 2.
Okay.
Then you go to Atlanta, last year's World Series champs, KC, who again another team we like, and Texas. So plenty of games to win there. And then going into August, you go Oakland, Seattle, Oakland. It does get easier for the Angels, but you got to start winning games regardless.
Reminder: trade deadline is August 2nd, I believe, this year. Not the typical July 31st. They moved it. It is now a roaming trade deadline based on when MLB finds the best day possible where, it's not a lot of day games and they can kind of allow GMs to make moves. And so you're not having guys get traded mid-game. So interesting. I think that's of note too. It gives teams another 2 days to make a decision, which honestly, if you look at the Angels from, 3 years ago, if they had 2 extra days to make a decision, they're probably sellers rather than buyers because they were, I think, like 8 games out. They lose 2 to start August, and then they went to 10 games out. So the 2 games probably doesn't matter for the Angels this year, but it could matter for a team like Chicago, the White Sox, who are hanging around kind of. So if they can get hot, they could be in for, a Noah Syndergaard, a Matt Duffy, or someone like that. So.
Yeah,
interesting. We'll be interested
in.
to see how this goes.
Yeah, I'm interested, but we'll jump into. We'll do a seller show probably. I would assume at some point. As bad as that sounds, assuming that the Angels
don't just rattle off 18 of the next 20 or something stupid.
They could do something stupid though. I mean, like we said, they got Houston, Houston's absolutely just out player development them. That's not correct. Out scouted, outdone everything to the Angels.
They've outplayed them.
And then you got the Dodgers.
Yeah, so
you got the Dodgers. So we'll kind of see how it looks going down the road. The Angels, I guess, kind of get a little easier, but they really got to start winning if they think they're going to be buyers by any means. So let's get on to what we were talking about last time. First, before we do that, Blue Wire, Blue Wire, Blue Wire, Blue Wire. Blue Wire. You can follow us on all of our social medias if you have not already. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can follow myself on Jared_Timms. You can follow Nate Green34. Subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. What's up, YouTube? Really do appreciate it. And Nate, let's get back to it. We talked. If you haven't listened again to the episode that came out on Thursday, the 5th of July, Tuesday, the 5th of July. I apologize. Go listen to that. That's kind of where we started. We talked about Artie Moreno and ownership. We talked about Perry Minasian and the front office and what they could do, how scouting has just not really been it. And the Angels have really lacked from that side of things. And now we get to the point where, we're not putting as much blame on these guys because there is a lot more that goes into it. As former coach, as coach now, we understand that there's a lot more that goes on in the background than what really meets the eye. Scouting reports, off field, anything, like
team morale, things like that,
player development, everything.
And just to remind everyone, we have placed 50% of the blame on Artie Moreno right now and 30% on the front office. That's including Perry Minasian, Jerry Dipoto,
and former James. Yes,
I was just going to say former, all the way back to Jerry Dipoto, and then going into scouting departments, draft anyone and everyone who works in the front office, assistant GMs, all of that. So
Tony La Russa.
Sure. That's your favorite guy. So we're at 80% with 2 guys to go. We're going to look at the coaching staff right now and kind of see. I think Jared and I are similar on the amount of blame. I think he wants to give a little less blame than I do, but I'm willing to go 10%.
Oh, that's good. I was going to go 10% as well. So we're right on there with that. It's interesting to me with everything. This is why we can't put, and I think we're in the same vote of why we're not putting as much blame on these guys, is just because, like players, first off, I don't think that the coaching staff has been put in the right situation by any means at all in the past since Jerry Dipoto because of all the moves that have happened.
Mhm.
We'll get to that in a second. Second off, I don't think the coaching staff actually does anything. We've talked about this off the record before. Everybody can go and blame Matt Wise and Phil Nevin and Joe Madden and Sosha. And Sosha might be the last coach that has actually ever done anything as a manager, to be honest. Joe Madden had his fair share of say that he could say, and I think that was the problem with why this team wasn't created in the correct way, because I think Joe Madden wanted it made his way. I think Perry wanted it made his way, and you kind of saw it split. Like Kurt Suzuki, Kurt Suzuki is probably a Joe Madden guy,
I don't think so.
where the bullpen was um, more of a Perry thing, and then you got Anthony Rendon, which was an Artie thing. So I just think that
There are too many cooks in the kitchen.
there's too many things going on right now, and you can't blame the coaching staff because they haven't been around long enough. I look at it as a college type of thing. You need 4 years to figure out what you're going to do, and I don't think anybody's really been given those 4 years lately to see what they can develop and see what can really be done. I think that a lot of these guys have been given 1 year. We saw Joe Madden get 2 years. I'm sure
Two and a half.
2.5. I'm sure at this point Perry brings in his guy. If that fails, we see Perry get the boot, and then Perry's guy gets the boot, and then it's an ever-going cycle. We've seen this before. It's going to continue to happen.
It's one of my least favorite things about the way Angels do business. Honestly, I think when the GM gets fired, the manager should get fired. The new GM should come in and make his own decision rather than coming in and hoping that the GM meshes really well with the current manager. So I think that has been a big problem. But I do think 10% of the blame to the coaching staff is fair. You look at part of their job is to keep morale good. Mike Trout does not look happy.
No,
that is literally the number one job right now to keep Mike Trout happy.
I don't care about Shohei Ohtani as much. I do. I want to keep him happy, but at the same time,
Shohei Ohtani's got 25 people around him at all times. He has his interpreter. He's got his trainer. He's got this. He's got that. He's got 25 people around him at all times. He doesn't speak English, so it's very hard for you to really connect with him. Not to say that you can't connect with someone that you don't speak the same language as, but it just makes it a whole lot harder. Especially when Mike Trout's been there for, we're going on year 13 now, I believe.
Second longest guy in the Angels org.
Yeah, so you're going on Mike Trout, who's been the face of the franchise for a very long time. Basically, since he was called up the second time, he's been the face of the franchise, and he does not look happy. So that is on the coaching staff. That needs to be handled. He cannot continue to look like he doesn't want to be there right now. And honestly, not to call Mike Trout out, but he hasn't played well lately, and I think part of it is he understands that he is in the same thing he has been in for the last 8 years. It is the same crap of, we're kind of competing, but we're not competing, so we're not going to trade anyone at the deadline, but we're not going to trade for anyone at the deadline. We're just going to stand pat and hope that this team figures it out. And you look at the teams that have gotten better over these 8 to 10 years, those are the teams that are making deals at the deadline, getting prospects to get better. And the Angels don't really do that. So that is a problem. That is part of the reason why the Angels can't get better, because they sign guys to 1-year deals, they let them walk, and they don't get anything out of return for them. So it is a big problem, upper management. Coaching staff-wise, everyone really, really wants to blame Matt Wise. Everyone really wants to blame Jeremy Reed. Everyone wants to blame, you name it. They're trying to throw shade at every single guy. Joe Madden was getting his fair share of the blame. And I get it. I 100% get it. The philosophy comes from the top down. So the GM has his way of doing things. He tells his people this is the way we are going to do things. And the coaching staff is supposed to continue with the way that that's supposed to go. Matt Wise, I think he was given far too much responsibility before he had really paid his dues. I don't think Matt Wise really truly understood what it was going to take to be a major league pitching coach. And you say pitching coaches don't do that much. I think pitching coaches do more than some people think. We should never have a guy where our center fielder's picking him. That should never happen. That is 100%. That is
Well,
100%.
That's on the entire coaching staff. Like that's if
Oh
you not notice, like you know how many times that I've sat in the dugout and picked a guy, looked over, and our entire staff also has picked the guy.
Yeah.
Like I know it's more of a college thing, but like it happened on a daily basis. Like 50% of the games, every other game, we pick the guy.
It is on the entire staff. I agree. But who's the guy who deals with him the most?
Well, yeah, no, 100%.
The pitching coach. So yes, it has to be Matt Wise that you throw the blame on for that. There has been way too many times this year where we have guessed or pretty much assumed that Angel pitchers are being picked.
Yeah.
And it's been Shohei Ohtani, it's been Reed Detmers, it's been Elvis Peguero, it's been you name it, every single guy we have kind of been like, ooh, he might be getting picked because but whose problem is that? Like, yes, the pitchers really should know, hey, maybe I'm getting picked here. What can I do to get better? But also that's on the pitching coach and the coaching staff to be like, hey, I know I'm seeing this, so how about we work on this? How about we take some time and in your pen today we work on this, or how about we do this to try and change some things? Because right now it looks like the definition of insanity. They are trying the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result from every single pitcher, and you are just continuing. And I totally get the Matt Wise blame. I totally do. But Matt Wise is not the reason the Angels don't develop well on the pitching staff. He is not the reason Reed Detmers hasn't pitched well. He's not the reason that Chase Silseth wasn't great. Or as time progressed, he's not the reason Jose Suarez can't throw strikes. But he is the reason that they can't get ahead of some of these teams and make sure that some of his pitchers are unpickable. He is in charge of making sure that these guys are getting ready at the right time and they're not late or they're not chasing or they're not rushing, things like that. He needs to have these guys ready to go. And it feels like, if you really want to get technical, it feels like there are some days these pitchers are not ready to go. Noah Syndergaard has had starts where he goes one inning. Shohei Ohtani has had starts where he can't get out of the first inning. That is preparation. Yes, they are big leaguers. Yes, they are grown men. Yes, they should take care of themselves. But Matt Wise is in charge of making sure that they stay on track. So I do place some of the blame on Matt Wise. I do think that this is Matt Wise's last year.
I agree with that. I do agree with that, and I would be very intrigued to know where the Angels would be with Mickey Callaway. I understand that's –
Don't bring that up.
You can't bring it up. I get it. But it would be very interesting to see because Mickey Callaway was a fantastic pitching coach. I get it. I understand there was a lot of background issues that went on there. We don't like to talk about it. It would be interesting to see. This reason right here that you just brought up, that you put on Matt Wise, 100% starts and ends with Matt Wise.
Yes.
But I also think that this is another reason why we put so much blame on the front office as well. I don't know. This is gonna sound really weird. This is diving very, very deep into it. I don't know if the Angels have sports psychologists. That would be very interesting to know. I know that you're like, I don't know how much that has anything to do with it.
I'm ready to go.
You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying?
I have that degree. Yeah, you give it to me, I'll go.
I know that a lot of very good teams, and I know a lot of bad teams also have sports psychologists as well. That's something that, like, let's keep in the back of our head. We can talk to some guys over the off season. And
I know Rosenberg. I asked him about that off the record, and Rosenberg talked about how Tampa Bay had guys and things like that. It was great.
Yeah.
I think he said the Angels had a guy that he had talked to, but just one for an entire organization is not going to work. I know the San Francisco Giants have at least one per team. So
makes sense.
But keep going.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is why we put so much blame on the front office. How things are, first off, getting through video guys, second off, getting through the pitching coach, and third off, your center fielder. And I'm picking pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is when we're having a bit of an issue. with it all. Like I said, there are way too many obstacles for those little things to be getting through. So yeah, yes is my answer to that. Like without going into too much of a detail, yes, that is my exact answer.
I would like. You got another thing you want to add?
Yes. Side note
Go ahead.
on that opening night in Inland Empire. I'm sitting. I like to sit and watch guys throw bullpens. Maybe not. Was it opening night? Yes, it was. Alejandro Hidalgo's starting. I'm sitting here watching him, and like I said, he's probably from literally from me to the screen, maybe a little bit farther back, probably like 5 feet back. And I'm sitting here watching him, and I'm like, he's doing something different. He's doing something different. He's this, and I look behind and I see one of the players picking him. It was super interesting, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So I'm like making eye contact with him. I'm like, like is he you see this too? And he's like, yeah. So he actually goes over to the pitching coach and tells him. The pitching coach stands there and is like, oh yeah, I see that. So it's I don't know if it could very well be like a major league, like you're in professional baseball now, like how are you tipping your pitches? But you also look at some of the kids that are coming over from the islands, and it's like these guys aren't taught this thing. These guys are taught to do things a little bit different, and
minor league wise, I think it's more the pitching coordinator, not as much the pitching coach per team. The pitching coordinator is in charge of everyone from the big leagues all the way down to instruct. So that is really something that he should be looking at. But yeah, the pitching coach could easily make a suggestion or something like that.
Yeah, I saw it right off the bat, so I just thought it was very very interesting. I turn around, one of the players has him picked from behind. I'm like, that's interesting. That means you can see his elbow too. So not only can you pick him from the first base dugout, you can pick him from the third base dugout. Your third base coach can pick him. Your first base coach can pick him. If you can see him from the first and third base side, the guy at second base can probably pick him as well when a guy gets on second base. And like, why can't the hitter pick him? Like if you're going to be one hitter in and the first guy that strikes out, the first guy that gets back to the dugout, it's like, well, this and this and this and this.
When his elbow bends, he's throwing this. When his elbow strips, he's throwing that. Got it.
As bad as it sounds, Mr. 3000, like that happens all the time. Like you see like a little bit of this, and it's like, well, watch that now, and then you start seeing little things like that. So yeah, it's super interesting. We're gonna end up making this into a part 3. Like we're just gonna keep breaking this stuff down. To be honest, like
whole week of this.
What?
I said a whole week of this.
It really is. Like it's really really interesting. Like to dive deeper and deeper into all this stuff.
Do you have any coach you want to call out, or should I continue?
There's no coach. You don't need to call. Like I said, I would be very interested to see what it would be like right now if Mickey Callaway was here. Not saying that Mickey Callaway is the answer, but like, yes, Matt Wise was very much so thrown into this, and Matt Wise was very much so
new to the coaching thing.
Joe Madden type of guy, probably a Billy Epler guy that was like that had impressed and had got himself a good resume, and he is very new to coaching. I think a lot of people were surprised that Wise stuck around. Jeremy Reed, as far as the coaching staff goes,
that was my next one.
Has done fantastic. Like I said, I think that again, Jeremy Reed has been with the organization long enough that he's made a name for himself, and it's like I think that he's done some really good things. Like guys behind the scenes that aren't with the team anymore. Sean Wooten was a really good hitting coach that a lot of people didn't know was still around with the team. Donnie Akerman, I can't remember. I'm going to butcher his name. He went to the Reds, became the hitting coach. He's actually the hitting coach now in the Giants. Weird that he's now the hitting coach there. Was with the Angels for a long time. He was an assistant hitting coach. Got a lot of good love there. But yeah, they're going to completely redo this coaching staff in the offseason. It wouldn't surprise me if nobody was around. Like Phil Nevin might stick around.
I don't see anyone sticking around, honestly. I really don't.
No.
With Jeremy Reed, it comes down to there are just so many guys that have struggled coming to the big leagues. And like we talked about, it's not 100% on the big league coaches to make sure that they're successful. But It is on the big league coach making sure that they are as prepared as possible. And I don't feel like when Stefanik came up the other day, he was as prepared as possible. When Brandon Marsh made his major league debut, I did not feel like he was as prepared as possible. When Joe Adell has made his debut and been up, he has not been prepared as possible. I think there are times where maybe the scouting report isn't right there, because you look at it, the Angels strike out a lot. And why do they strike out a lot? They chase a lot. They do chase.
This goes back to the front office, though.
They chase a lot.
This goes back to the front office, and I know we're not putting very much blame on the players, but you need to have better scouting reports. Like, we're in a day and age where, like, we complain about umpires, we complain about the strike zone, we complain about this, that, and another, and we have yet to complain about how far the Angels are behind. It's still behind. Like, we talked about it for a long time, that, like, oh, the Angels are behind, and the Angels are, like, the last person to do reps, so the last person to do this, last person to do that, launch angle, blah, 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 blah. They are farther behind now than they were when they were really far behind. Yep. Like, as far as that is, and it really shows, and that's why I'm putting so much blame on the front office, because it was preached for the longest time. We're going to go back to old school baseball. We're going to go back to old school baseball. I don't think at this point you can beat new school baseball with old school baseball. I think
you easily could have gone back to old school baseball, but you had to press the gas pedal and go all the way back. You can't play this 50-50 game and say, like, oh, we're kind of going to be old school and kind of be new school. Like, you had to be the team to get the guys who know how to steal bases, the guy who knows how to bunt, the guy who knows how to play defense, and the pitchers who know how to throw strikes. That is what you needed. You can't continue to run this stupid thing of, oh, we're going to bring out a bunch of guys who don't strike out, and, well, they don't really steal bases, and they don't really runs. They don't really play that good of defense. Like, they just had way too many things of, like, old school teams. They played the game right. They played the game hard. They didn't strike out, and they ran the bases incredibly well. The Angels never really did any of those.
Can you play old school baseball with a new school front office?
I think so. I think you've seen some teams be able to do that. You have to have the right personnel, of course, and I don't think the Angels have that personnel right now. But if you really, really wanted to, you could. It's just all about the guys on the field. You can't force, like, if you have Josh Donaldson on the team, you can't force that guy to play old school baseball. He's not an old school guy. He's a new school guy.
Force Josh Donaldson to go the other way. He pulls the ball.
Yeah. So you have to have the right type of players, the guys that are going to do the little things right and that type of thing. And they don't really have that right now. So, yeah, they are really, really behind. When it comes to Joe Madden, I don't want to place too much of the blame on him because, like we said, managers barely write the lineup card. They're not doing as much. But I do think that there are people around the manager, whether that's the first base coach, whether that's the third base coach, whether that's the infield coach, all of these guys need to come together and make the team better. And I don't think they're doing that. I think that there are guys that have been given coaching roles that have not really coached too much, or they're given roles that they're really not made for. You mentioned Jeremy Reed's been pretty good. He's had, what I would say is, he's had success with guys you weren't expecting to have success with, but he has not had success with the high talent profile guys that you need to have success with. If the Angels are going to be good from here on out, the top prospects have to be good. Joe Adell has to be able to perform. Brandon Marsh has to be able to perform. You cannot, yes, Taylor Ward was a high profile prospect at one time. And then people forgot that guy existed. And now all of a sudden people are like, oh, he's part of our future plans. This guy's legit. Matt Dice, first round pick, nothing. You continue to look at all these guys that have been high profile first round picks, second round picks, and you see what the Angels have done with them. And all we see from our perspective is swing change after swing change after swing change after swing change. And you look up and you're like, holy cow, Taylor Ward has had 4 different swings in 5 years.
That for me goes to the front office. 100%.
It is.
And the preparation goes to the front office too. I mentioned this to you when Stefanik came up. It was like this guy's playing the Astros. The Astros have hell of a report on Stefanik. I think I might have mentioned in this last podcast too.
Yeah, we did.
Stefanik has they had a very good report on Stefanik because Stefanik doesn't go and strike out very often. He strikes out 3 times in his.
He was also overmatched, but okay.
Exactly, he was well, and that goes to the scouting department having a good report on somebody. The Astros have absolutely outreported the Angels. They've outplayed them, yes, but they have outcoached them, and they have been able to outdo everything because they have better reports. Like, that's why I'm putting, like, I would so much as put like a 50-50 blame on Artie and the front office. And
I think the most you can give is 40, and then 5 and 5 for players and coaches. But
that's fine.
But the coaching staff hasn't been great. It hasn't been ideal. I mean, I am
hasn't
going
been a complete coaching staff either. So
it hasn't. You can blame the first base coach for Taylor Ward getting back picked the other night. Like, there are things that this coaching staff has not performed well to. And yes, we don't want to place all the blame on this, but you can give 10% of the blame to this coaching staff. It has not been very good. The coaching staff really hasn't been very good in a long time. I personally think that it's been messed up since Brad Ausmus. I am not a huge Brad Ausmus fan. I will continue to sing that for as long as I possibly can, as loud as I possibly can. I think Brad Ausmus should not be a major league manager. He's fine bench coach, whatever, but I think this coaching staff has been in shambles for years, and the Angels really need a revamp. They need a new look guy who looks at the game differently. They need a guy like Mark DeRosa. They need a guy like that.
We could continue this. Zoom's going to cut me off, unfortunately. I apologize. We could continue this for hours and hours. We'll continue to talk about this. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast here at Talking Halos, making us skin the best podcast out there. Follow us on all our social media. Subscribe wherever you're listening. You can follow myself, Jared_Tims, Nate at NateGreen34. And guys, thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.